I knew something was wrong the moment my son raised his voice at me. That sharp, cutting tone a grown child uses only when they've forgotten who raised them. "Don't step inside that room again," he shouted from the hallway. "I told you it's theirs now." For a moment I honestly thought he was yelling at someone else, a neighbor, a delivery guy, anyone but me. But no, he meant every word for me. Yes, this is the day my own son claimed my villa belonged to his wife's family, while I was still living in it. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. My name is Rafi. I am 68 years old. I built this villa brick by brick in the hillside neighborhood of Mirador Heights, a quiet place overlooking the old port city of Taranholm. My wife and I spent more than 3 decades turning it into a home. Then she passed away and the house got too quiet, so my son suggested I let him and his wife move in temporarily. Temporarily. I should have known that word never means what it sounds like. Now here I was, standing in my own hallway, holding a stack of freshly folded towels, only to be met with my son blocking the guest room door like a guard at a castle gate. He wasn't alone. His wife stood behind him, arms crossed, her expression tight with irritation, like my presence offended the air somehow. She had never liked me much, but lately she'd grown bold in her dislike. "What do you mean it's theirs?" I asked quietly. My son Zayden didn't flinch. "Her parents are arriving tomorrow. They'll be staying here from now on. They need the space." I stared at him, blinking slowly, trying to understand the words he was tossing around like nothing. "Her parents?" I repeated. "Staying here? For how long?" He shrugged. "Indefinitely. Indefinitely." Another one of those dangerous words he used way too easily. I set the towels down on a nearby chair. "Zayden, this is my villa. That room is the one your mother decorated. It still has her quilts, her books, our memories." His jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic, Dad. You don't even use that room." I felt something shift inside me, some mix of disbelief and slow-burning anger. "I don't use it, but it's still mine." His wife, Lena, stepped forward with that same dismissive tone she always used. "Your old things make the place look depressing. We moved the books out already. My parents prefer a fresh, clean environment." I looked toward the guest room door. The wooden nameplate my wife carved years ago was missing. The doorknob had been replaced. Even the smell in the hallway felt different, like my home was slipping away one decision at a time. "When did you move the books?" I asked, voice low. "Yesterday," Lena said. "We put them in the basement. You can sort through them whenever, but please don't touch the room anymore. Please don't touch the room anymore." A strange ache settled in my chest. When a stranger says something like that, you brush it off. When your own child says it, it lands in a place you didn't know still had pain left. I ran a hand through my gray hair. "Where exactly is your wife's family going to stay? They have their own house." "They sold it," Zayden said, shrugging. "It doesn't matter, they're staying here now. It makes sense." "Makes sense to whom?" I took a breath, steadying myself. "You should have talked to me first." "We did," he insisted. "You weren't listening." "Listening?" No, I had been listening. I simply hadn't expected my son to interpret my silence as permission. "And what about me?" I asked quietly. Zayden looked away, almost like he couldn't meet my eyes. "We were actually going to bring this up tonight," he muttered. "You might want to move into the smaller room upstairs. It's more appropriate." Appropriate. First temporarily, then indefinitely, now appropriate. Words cutting deeper each time. "Zayden," I said slowly, "you're asking me to leave my own bedroom." He shook his head. "Not asking, just suggesting. The villa is going to need to be reorganized. There's more people now." I stood there, the air suddenly feeling thinner. "You're reorganizing," I whispered. "A house that isn't yours." He stiffened. Lena stepped closer and placed a hand on his arm. "Well," she said calmly, "it's theirs now." My heart dropped, not because of the words, but because of how casually she said them. How confidently, how certain. She wasn't talking about her parents. She meant her family, her bloodline, her side, not mine, not anymore. But the real shock came later that night, when I discovered the papers they'd hidden behind my wife's framed photo, papers that explained exactly why they wanted the villa so badly. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the argument, Not because of the disrespect, but because of the sentence Lena said so casually, so confidently. It's theirs now. Those words kept replaying in my head long after both of them shut their bedroom door and the villa fell quiet. My wife used to say that some sentences aren't spoken, they are declared, and this one had been a declaration. I sat in the living room under the dim glow of the floor lamp, listening to the low hum of the ceiling fan, staring at nothing in particular. Every part of the villa had a memory attached to it, and each memory whispered loudly now. The staircase my wife and I painted together, the balcony where we would drink tea at sunrise, the guest room she filled with books she loved, the garden I maintained even after her illness took her strength. Now Lena's voice echoed in all those places. It's theirs now, but fate has a strange sense of timing because that same night, around midnight, I noticed something odd. A thin sliver of light coming from the corner of the hallway, not from any room, from behind a picture frame. One of my wife's old wooden frames that held our photo from our 20th anniversary, a picture I never moved, because she carved the frame herself. I stood up slowly and walked toward it. The closer I got, the more I realized the light wasn't from the frame itself, but from some reflection behind it. That made no sense. I lifted the frame gently, and that's when my stomach tightened. Behind it, taped to the wall, was a thick envelope. Not stuffed with papers, but bulging heavy as if it carried more than documents. For a moment I just stared at it, unsure whether I should be angry, confused, or scared. I pulled it off the wall and took the envelope back to the living room. When I opened it, a stack of crisp documents slid out across the coffee table. Forms, contracts, agreements, meeting notes, a property transfer application with my villa's address on it. But the paper that froze me in place was a photocopy of a signature. My signature. Except it wasn't mine, not even close. My hands trembled as I examined it under the lamp. The strokes were wrong, the curve of the R was reversed, and the last name ended with a flourish I never use. But the dates, the initials, the witness signature, they were all printed as if already verified. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. They forged my signature, not guessed, not attempted, forged, cleaned up, copied, and attached to documents that were designed to move ownership of my villa into someone else's hands. And based on the notes, the new owners were not my son and his wife. They were her parents, her entire family. My breath tightened. I kept flipping through the papers, more emails, more notes. A meeting date circled in red ink at the top of one of the pages, scheduled for the coming week. A meeting where they planned to finalize the reassignment of property rights. In other words, they intended to take everything. Not eventually. Not someday. Now. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the dining room clock. For the first time in years, I felt the coldness of the walls. Cold because they were no longer mine. I didn't know how long I sat there processing everything, minutes, maybe hours, until I finally heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw Zayden standing in the hallway, his hair messy from sleep, but his eyes immediately darting to the documents spread across the coffee table, his face drained of color. "Dad," he whispered. Not guilty, not apologetic, just caught. "Where did you get those?" I didn't answer. I simply held up the forged signature with 2 fingers, the paper trembling slightly between them. "Explain this," I said quietly. He swallowed hard. "Dad, that's not what you think." "What I think," I replied, keeping my voice steady, "is that you forged my name." He stepped forward, palms out, panicked. "No, Dad, listen, it's complicated. They needed assurance. They needed my villa," I said. "Not yours. Not Lena's. Mine." "Dad, please," he begged. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're giving away everything your mother and I built." He shut his eyes, breathing hard. "It's already in motion," he whispered. "We couldn't stop it even if we wanted to." A strange calm washed over me. "Then why hide the papers?" I asked. His eyes flicked to the empty space on the wall where the frame had been. "Because you weren't supposed to find them yet," he said. "Yet." That word burned more than the rest. I leaned closer. "And when was I going to find out, Zayden? When the villa was no longer legally mine?" He said nothing, not a word, because the answer was yes. But what he told me next was worse, because it revealed exactly who convinced him to do all this. and exactly how long they'd been planning it. Zayden didn't sit. He didn't step closer. He just stood there in the dim hallway light, shifting his weight from one foot to the other like a man who had run out of lies but still didn't know how to tell the truth. I placed the forged document gently on the table, smoothing its edge with my fingertips. "Start talking," I said. He opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again. "Dad, you have to understand this wasn't my idea." "Then whose?" I asked quietly. His jaw tightened. "Lena's family. Mostly her mother." "Ah, her mother. A woman who had never stepped foot into my home until after the wedding, yet behaved as if she had written the rules of everyone's lives. A woman who had always looked at me with polite boredom like I was a placeholder until her real family arrived." I leaned back in the chair. "Why?" Zayden ran a hand through his hair, pacing a small circle. "They're in trouble," he said finally. "Real trouble. They made some bad investments, lost a lot of money, and then their landlord sold their building. They needed a place to stay. So they targeted my villa?" I asked sharply. "Without asking me? They said it was temporary," he muttered. There it was again. That cursed word. "Temporary," I repeated. "Like how you and Lena moving in was temporary." He winced. He remembered that conversation too. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he continued. "They came up with a plan. They said if we all lived together for a while, they could help with the bills, fix the place up, maybe turn the villa into something bigger, something profitable." I felt a heavy, bitter laugh rise in my chest. "And you believed them?" He looked away. "They promised opportunities. They said they had connections, and I wanted to impress them. Of course, that was always the crack in his armor. His need to prove himself to everyone but the people who actually loved him. Instead," I said, "you let them convince you to steal from your own father." "Dad, no." He reached out half a step. "It wasn't stealing. It was more like securing a future. For all of us. For all of them," I corrected. He flinched. I picked up another paper from the table. A letter drafted from a real estate office in the West District of Tarenholm. "You were going to meet with them next week," I said. "Without me." His shoulders dropped. "They said if I talked to you, you'd say no." "And they were absolutely right," I replied. He sank onto the armrest of the sofa, rubbing his forehead. "Dad, I'm in deep," he whispered. "We borrowed money from them, a lot, to help with the business I was starting last year." He swallowed hard. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. That business failed," I said. "You told me it just slowed down." His silence was confirmation. "And instead of coming to me," I said, "you dragged me into their debt." "It wasn't dragging," he protested weakly. "They said the villa could cover everything. They said they'd take care of you. Let you live here as long as you wanted. As long as they wanted, you mean." He looked at the floor. He didn't argue. I pressed my palm against the envelope, feeling its weight again. Heavier now that I understood what it meant. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. He met my eyes, and for the first time I saw the exhaustion pulling at the edges of his face. "For almost a year," he whispered. "Since before you let us move in. A year. A full year of pretending, a full year of smiling at dinner, a full year of Dad, don't worry, we'll help you manage things. A full year of Lena's mother visiting more than usual. A full year of things going missing, being reorganized, being replaced. And I had missed it, because I wanted to believe my son was still the boy who once held my hand on the walk to school." I stared at him, the betrayal settling deeper. "You were waiting for your mother to pass before doing this," I said quietly. He looked horrified. "No, Dad, of course not." But he didn't deny it quickly enough. Not quickly enough for a father's heart. Silence filled the room, thick as humidity before a storm. Then he said something that made everything far, far worse. "They already think of the villa as theirs," he admitted softly. "Lena's parents, her uncles. They've all agreed on it." I blinked once, then twice. "So you gave them permission?" I asked. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was the answer. But the next morning, everything escalated, because Lena's parents arrived early, and they walked into my villa carrying boxes labeled "Our Room." They arrived earlier than anyone expected, not quietly, not politely, but with the noise and confidence of people stepping into a house they already believed belonged to them. I was in the kitchen pouring hot water into a mug when the front door opened without a single knock. Cold morning air rushed in, followed by voices I had only heard a handful of times. Two people stepped inside carrying large cardboard boxes. On the sides, written in bold black marker, were the words, "Our room," not guest room, not spare room, not even Lena's parents. Our room. My hands froze around the kettle. The water overfilled the mug and spilled onto the counter, but I barely felt it. Lena's mother, a tall woman with sharp posture and a permanently displeased expression, was the first to enter. Behind her came Lena's father, shorter, quiet, yet carrying an attitude that suggested he believed anything he touched was already his. Lena followed close behind them, pretending to look busy with her phone. Zayden trailed at the back of the group, avoiding eye contact with me altogether. The mother saw me and smiled, but it wasn't a smile meant for peace. It was the kind of smile a person uses when they think they've won. "Oh, good," she said brightly. "You're awake. We wanted to get a head start." She lifted her box slightly. "Where should we put these?" The level of entitlement nearly made me laugh. I set the kettle down slowly. "Into your own home," I said flatly. Her smile didn't falter. "Oh, you're still adjusting." She waved her hand dismissively as if swatting a fly. "Don't worry. Once we settle in, everything will feel much smoother." Lena's father cleared his throat. "We'll take the room on the right, the one with the balcony, good sunlight. The room with the balcony, my wife's favorite. The room with her quilts, her bookshelves, her reading lamp." Zayden finally spoke up, his voice small. "Dad, we talked about this." "No," I said, not raising my voice but letting each word fall heavily. "You talked at me. There's a difference." Lena stepped forward, annoyed. "Please don't make this harder. We're trying to help everyone adjust. This is just the new arrangement." New arrangement. Their phrases kept evolving like stages of a disease. First temporary, then indefinite, then appropriate, now arrangement, all used to erase what was mine. I folded my arms. "You didn't ask my permission." Lena's mother scoffed, loud and deliberate. "Your son gave us permission. That's enough." My eyes moved to Zayden. His shoulders hunched. His guilt was visible, yet he said nothing, not even to deny her claim. The mother continued, "We already discussed everything with the real estate office. They said all we need is the signed packet from next week, and then—" I cut her off. "What packet?" She blinked innocently. "The reassignment packet, of course. Zayden told us you agreed to it months ago." I turned to my son, voice low. "You said I agreed?" Zayden fumbled. "Dad, I didn't want them to panic. I told them we were working on it." The father placed his box on the floor with a heavy thud that echoed through the hall. "Look," he said firmly, "we're already here. We quit our old lease. We brought our things. This is happening. And if I say no?" I asked. He smiled, a cold, humorless smile. "Then we'll discuss it at the meeting next week. But we won't be moving out." Lena's mother straightened. "We've sacrificed a lot to make this move. Don't turn this into a conflict." A conflict. It already was. I stepped forward, standing between them and the hallway leading to the rooms. "No one is setting foot in that bedroom," I said quietly. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever." Lena's mother raised an eyebrow. "You're outnumbered, and you're out of line," I replied. For the first time, the room fell silent. The father lifted his chin. "We'll let the paperwork decide." I nearly laughed at that. Paperwork they forged. Paperwork they hid. Paperwork they thought I wouldn't find. I kept my voice controlled. "The only paperwork that decides anything in this villa is the deed with my name on it." Zayden looked like he might break. "Dad, please, just let today go smoothly. We'll explain everything later." "No," I said. "You'll explain everything now." Lena quickly stepped between us. "Stop making a scene." But I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to shout or argue. I simply walked past them, opened the front door wide, and said, "If you step further into this house with those boxes, you are trespassing." Lena's mother stared at me like she finally realized I wasn't the soft, easy target she thought I was. But what she said next chilled me to the bone. "You won't say that after you read the notice." "Notice? What notice?" I asked. She smirked and tapped the top of her box. "The one your son signed yesterday." And when I finally saw that notice tucked inside their box, I realized they weren't just taking my villa, they were planning to remove me from it entirely. The moment she said notice, something inside me tightened, the kind of instinct that warns an older man when trouble is already halfway through the door. Lena's mother set her box on the floor and opened the lid with exaggerated calm, digging through folded clothes and small household items until she pulled out a crisp white envelope. She held it between two fingers like it was a winning lottery ticket. "This," she said sweetly, "is why your objections don't matter." I didn't take it from her immediately. I let her stand there, smirking, believing she had control. Finally, I extended my hand. She placed the envelope in my palm with a smug confidence that made my stomach curdle. I walked to the dining table before opening it, refusing to let them crowd me. The villa felt smaller with all of them standing in the hallway, like strangers invading a memory. Inside the envelope was a document stamped with a bold red title, Occupancy Adjustment and Transfer Notice. Below that, my villa's address, the same one I had lived in for more than 3 decades. I read slowly, carefully, every line, every clause. The notice described an arrangement that would transition the property into joint residency status, allowing new occupants to share the space while long-term restructuring is completed. It was written deliberately vague, but the implication was clear. They were moving in, and they believed they had the right to. My eyes dropped to the bottom of the page. My name, my supposed signature, and beside it another signature, Zayden's, dated yesterday. My throat went dry. I lifted the paper to the light, looking closely at the signature beneath my printed name. Same shaky stroke, same incorrect loop on the first letter, same unnatural finish on the last name. Another forgery. I looked up slowly, my gaze shifting from the paper and to Lena, to her parents, and finally to my son. He couldn't hold my stare. "Dad," he said softly, "just let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "How many more signatures of mine did you forge?" He winced like I had hit him. Lena crossed her arms. "We had to move things forward. You were delaying everything, and my parents are not going back to their old situation. That chapter is done," her mother added. "We deserve stability. Your son is providing that." My jaw tightened. "By stealing from me?" Her father stepped closer. "Nobody is stealing. You will still have a place here, but things need to be reorganized." There it was again. That word. Reorganized. As if I were a shelf, a rug, something to be moved out of the way. I folded the notice deliberately, keeping my voice calm. "So you move forward without my consent?" Lena's mother shrugged. "We didn't think you'd mind." "You didn't think," I corrected. "At all?" Zayden rubbed his forehead, pacing anxiously. "Dad, please. They had no place to go, and I made promises. They're counting on us." "Us?" I repeated. "Or you?" He stopped pacing. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "They helped me when I needed it. I owe them. And I raised you for more than 30 years, I replied. "Do you owe me nothing?" His silence was more painful than slaps. Lena stepped forward, voice sharp. "Your villa is too big for one person. It's time it served a purpose. And honestly, my parents will take better care of it than you." The disrespect stunned even her father, who shot her a warning look. But she didn't care. She was too deep into her own narrative. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue, didn't plead. I simply said, "Get out of my house." Lena laughed under her breath, a short, mocking sound. "You can't be serious." "I am," I said quietly. "Leave." Zayden stepped forward. "Dad, stop. You're making it worse." "No," I said. "I'm recognizing what's already happening." I pointed at the notice. "This is fraud." Lena's mother bristled. "Not if the meeting goes through." "And it won't," I said. "Because I will be there." Her smile flickered, just for a moment. A tiny crack of fear or uncertainty. That told me everything. "You weren't planning to let me attend that meeting," I said. Zayden didn't respond. His silence confirmed it. They weren't just taking the villa. They were trying to push me out of the process entirely. I placed the folded notice back into the envelope and slipped it into my pocket. "I want all of you out," I repeated. Lena's father lifted a box. "We're not leaving. We sold our last place. We live here now." I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. "Not yet," I said. "And not today." He smirked. You can't stop what's already in motion. But he didn't know what I knew. Not yet. Because that same night I received a message from someone I never expected. Someone who knew exactly what Lena's family was planning and how to stop them. The message came late. So late that the villa had gone still. The kind of silence that feels staged, like everyone is pretending to sleep. The hall lights were off. The boxes Lena's parents brought sat untouched by the door, and Zayden's footsteps had finally stopped after pacing for what felt like hours. I was in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed with the forged notice in my hand when my phone buzzed. One new message from an unknown number. They plan to force you out before the meeting. Don't leave your room until morning. I stared at the screen, trying to process the words. Was this a threat? A warning? A mistake? I typed back. Who is this? The reply came instantly. Someone who has seen what they're doing. A chill crept up my spine, not of fear but of recognition. Someone else knew. Someone had been watching the whole thing unfold. Why should I trust you? I wrote. You shouldn't, they replied. But you should read what's inside the second envelope they hid. My heart thudded. Second envelope. Before I could ask anything else, the number went silent. No typing dots. No more messages. Nothing. I sat back, staring at the screen until it dimmed, trying to understand what I had just walked into. Someone was inside this situation. Someone who had access to their plans. Someone who wanted me to find something. I stood slowly and opened my bedroom door just a crack. The hallway was dark except for a faint bit of moonlight from the window near the stairs. I listened. No voices, no movement. Only the low hum of the villa's old heating system. I stepped out quietly and made my way toward the living room, careful not to wake anyone. Every wooden floorboard seemed louder than usual, every shadow deeper. The boxes near the door were still there, all marked with the same bold black marker. Our room, fragile. Keep this box upright. But one box looked different. The tape wasn't fully pressed down on one side, as if someone had opened it and closed it in a hurry. I knelt beside it and slowly lifted the flap. Inside were folded clothes, a blanket, a bundle of toiletries, and at the bottom, half tucked under a sweater, was another envelope. My pulse quickened. This had to be the one the message referred to. I pulled it out and moved to the dining table, not daring to turn on a bright light. I used the dim lamp near the corner instead. When I opened the envelope, I expected more forged signatures, but what I found made me freeze. A letter, handwritten. Not typed, not printed. Handwritten in neat cursive. This arrangement requires full removal of the original owner prior to transfer. If he refuses to leave voluntarily, alternative pressure methods will be used. Below that was a list. A list of pressure methods. I felt sick reading them. Emotional pressure, isolation, legal confusion, temporary relocation, reassignment without presence, emergency appointment signatures, accidental misplacement of documents, conditional family loyalty. The last item stopped my breath. If still resistant, seek immediate removal by declaring him mentally unfit. My hands tightened around the paper. Mentally unfit. That was the plan. To paint me as senile? To claim I couldn't manage my own affairs? I stared at the list, every word sinking deeper like stones thrown into a well. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't financial panic. This was a coordinated takeover, with steps, with strategy, with backup plans. I took a deep breath, folded the letter, and slid it into my pocket. I was about to stand when I heard a soft creak behind me. I turned sharply. Zayden stood at the end of the hallway, eyes wide, breath shallow. You found it, he whispered. His voice shook, not with anger, but with something closer to dread. I didn't speak. He stepped forward slowly. Dad, I told them this was too far. I stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. They said, if you wouldn't sign, they could claim you weren't thinking clearly. His voice broke slightly. They said it would be cleaner that way. I stared at him, my heart heavier than before. You were going to let them? I asked quietly. He shut his eyes. One tear slipped out. I didn't know how to stop them, he whispered. By telling the truth, I said. He shook his head violently. You don't understand. They don't take no for an answer. Their whole family, my in-laws, they push and push until you break. And you broke, I said. He didn't deny it. He looked at me, face pale. Dad, They're not going to wait for the meeting. They want to force you out in the morning, before anything can be reversed." He swallowed hard. "Moments ago, they talked about calling someone." "Who?" I asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "A wellness officer. To evaluate you. A wellness officer. A mental evaluation. A forced removal." So that was their final plan. But before dawn came, everything changed. Because the person who warned me decided to show up in person. The knock came at the worst possible hour. That gray-blue slice of morning before sunrise, when the world feels half awake and half asleep, when a man's instincts are louder than his thoughts. It wasn't the kind of knock someone uses to be polite, nor the kind used by a neighbor or even by family. It was measured, firm, controlled. The kind of knock that tells you the person on the other side already knows you're up and already knows what they came for. I stepped into the hallway quietly. The villa was dim, but light leaked under the door of the room where Lena's parents slept, if they slept at all. Zayden was sitting at the dining table, head in his hands, still awake from the night before. He looked up sharply when he heard the knock. "They came early," he whispered. Fear flickered in his eyes. I didn't answer him. I didn't have to. Another knock echoed, deeper this time. I walked to the front door and opened it just a crack, not enough to let anyone step in. A tall woman stood outside. Dark coat, professional posture, hair pulled back tight. She wasn't a wellness officer, that was clear immediately. Her expression was too sharp, too alert, too intentional. She flashed an ID. A laminated card with a seal that looked official enough to intimidate anyone who didn't know better. "Good morning," she said evenly. "I'm here for a wellness assessment." My jaw tightened. "At this hour?" She didn't blink. "We were requested urgently. Concerns were raised about your stability." Behind me, Zayden muttered a curse under his breath. I kept my voice calm. "Requested by whom?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I could hear movement behind me. Soft footsteps, a door creaking. Lena's mother appeared in the hallway wearing a robe, eyes wide with feigned worry. "Oh, thank goodness," she said dramatically. "We didn't know what else to do. He's been confused, agitated. He's been wandering around at night." It took everything in me not to laugh at the performance. Wandering? Agitated? I had spent the night reading evidence of their fraud. They spent the night plotting my removal. The officer, if she was one, looked at me again. "May I come in and speak with you privately?" "No," I said. She blinked. "Sir, if you refuse—" I said no, I repeated. "And I'm not refusing because I'm unstable. I'm refusing because I know my rights." Lena's father stepped into view, arms crossed, irritation already brewing. "Why are you being difficult? Just let her talk to you. It's protocol." Protocol. As if they knew anything about protocol. Before I could speak again, a car pulled into the driveway. A single black sedan. No markings, no logos. The driver stepped out, a man in a brown jacket, medium height, calm expression. I recognized him immediately, because I had seen him before. He was the one who had slipped a folded brochure into my mailbox last summer when Zayden's business failed. A brochure for property fraud prevention services. I thought it was random. Now I knew better. He approached the house with a steady walk. Not rushed, not intimidated. The fake wellness officer stiffened. Lena's parents exchanged a look. Zayden slowly stood, uncertain what was happening. The man stopped at the foot of the steps. "Morning," he said to me. Quiet, respectful. Like he knew exactly what he walked into. I nodded back. "You're the one who texted me." "Yes," he said. "And I told you they'd try to force your removal before the meeting." The fake officer stepped forward, voice sharp. "This is a private matter." "Who are you?" He reached into his jacket, not hurriedly, not threateningly, and pulled out his own ID. He held it up clearly for everyone to see. "This," he said calmly, "is what a real investigator's credential looks like." Her face twitched, just slightly. He continued, "I work with the Regional Housing and Fraud Oversight Unit. We received multiple anonymous complaints over the past few months regarding coercion, forged signatures, and attempted title manipulation connected to this address." Zayden's knees nearly buckled. Lena's mother lost her smile. Lena's father clenched his jaw. The fake officer took one small step backward. "I'm here," the investigator said, "because your son finally reached out." I turned sharply to Zayden. His voice cracked. "I didn't know what else to do." The investigator looked at me. Sir, if you'll allow me inside, we can address this properly. I stepped aside immediately. The fake officer tried to walk away, but the investigator blocked her path with a quiet firmness. You were reported as participating in unauthorized evaluations. You're not going anywhere. Lena's mother rushed forward. This is a misunderstanding. No, he said calmly. It isn't. He entered the villa, closing the door behind him. My heartbeat slowed for the first time in days. The battlefield had shifted, and not in their favor. But I didn't know the investigator's arrival would expose something even darker. A secret Lena's family had been hiding long before they ever set foot in my villa. The investigator closed the door behind him with a soft, deliberate click, the kind of sound that rewrites the rules in a room. For the first time since my son and his wife's family had stepped into my villa, the air shifted in my favor. No shouting, no false accusations, just a heavy, unmistakable silence waiting to be broken. He placed his briefcase on the living room table and motioned calmly, "Let's sit." All of us. Lena's parents stiffened but obeyed. Zayden sat down slowly, eyes lowered, knuckles white. I took the armchair across from them, the armchair I bought 20 years ago with timber money from the mill. The same chair Lena used to sit on as a little girl while I read her stories. The investigator opened a folder and slid out several documents, copies, photos, and reports. Before we begin, he said quietly, I need you all to understand something. When financial manipulation is suspected, especially involving elder households, we investigate thoroughly. And what I found here, he tapped the folder once, is not small. Lena's mother's fingers twitched into a tight knot. Lena's father lifted his chin, trying to look confident but failing miserably. What are you suggesting? He asked. The investigator's gaze didn't shift. I'm not suggesting anything, I'm stating it. There are forged documents connected to this villa and not just recent ones. A chill crawled down my spine. Forged documents? Before this year? He continued. The title history shows a suspicious amendment filed roughly 18 months ago, far before any alleged behavioral concerns. Zayden's head shot up. I didn't know that. The investigator nodded. I'm aware. All the activity traces back to one party. His eyes lifted slowly, landing on Lena's father. You. The color drained from the man's face so quickly it was almost startling. Lena's mother whispered, Stop talking. Right now. But the investigator didn't stop. You attempted to move partial rights of this villa into your family name last year. The attempt failed because supporting documents were incomplete. Then you tried again, using signatures that do not match the legal owner's handwriting. He looked at me. Mine. I felt my lungs tighten. My throat burned. They had tried taking my villa long before their daughter married my son. Zayden stood abruptly. You mean, this wasn't Lena's idea? This wasn't recent? The investigator folded his hands. The plot predates her marriage by several months. My heart dropped. Every memory of Lena saying, Dad, they just need a little help for now. Every moment when I believed she was overwhelmed, pressured, manipulated, all of it twisted into something bitter and sour. Lena's mother lifted her chin. We were trying to protect our daughter's future. She deserves stability. A real family legacy. I finally spoke. My voice was low, steady. A legacy built on stealing from me? Lena's father snapped. She married your son. That means she's entitled to what he's entitled to. The investigator corrected him instantly. That is not how property law works in this region. Zayden's voice broke. You used me, used her, for a house? Lena's father scoffed. Grow up. Properties pass through families. You should be grateful we even considered you. The words struck something deep in Zayden. For the first time in a long time, I saw my boy. Not the man shaped by pressure and loyalty to the wrong people. My boy. He turned to me, tears slipping down his face. Dad, I didn't know. I swear on everything I didn't know. And I believed him. The investigator gathered his documents. Here's what will happen next. I will file a full report recommending criminal charges for forgery and attempted property theft. Additionally, due to coercive behavior toward the homeowner, I will recommend a standing protection order. Lena's mother jolted up from her seat. You can't just... I can, he interrupted calmly. And I will. He turned to me. Sir, your property rights are secure. No transfer, sale, or modification can occur without your explicit signature moving forward. My chest loosened. For the first time in months. Zayden wiped his face with his sleeve. Dad, if you let me stay, I'll fix everything. I'll make this right. I stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the coastline. The same shore where I taught him to fish when he was barely taller than my waist. You don't need to fix everything, son, I said quietly. Just fix yourself. The investigator escorted Lena's parents and the fake officer out. Their protests faded down the walkway, replaced by distant waves and the hum of the morning breeze. When the door closed, I felt peace, not triumph, not revenge, just peace. Later that week, the official paperwork arrived. Everything in my name, untouched, unshakable. Zayden asked if he could move back in while sorting out his life. I agreed, but with boundaries, respect, and truth as the new rules of this house. And slowly, for the first time, in a long time, I started to get my son back. Not through force, not through fear, but through honesty, through consequences, through love that had survived manipulation, betrayal, and almost losing everything. Now, when I sit on the porch at sunset watching the villa glow gold in the fading light, I don't think about what almost happened. I think about what didn't, and that is enough. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.